It's very heartening to tell you that Jain University Center for Ancient History and Culture has taken the initiative to organize a national seminar on intellectual traditions of ancient India. The basic reason why this seminar was organized and why it was titled so was to make the youth of today understand the rich heritage that India has in itself. For the seminar, doyens in the field are invited who would give us insights about the intellectual traditions, and the 3-day deliberation would certainly lead to some kind of insight into these factors, which would further lead to various dialogues. We are having with us the chairman of the Indian Council for Historical Research, Professor Y Sudershana Rao. Very kind of you, sir, for having graced this occasion as the chief guest. Sir, we would like to ask you a few questions as to what you would think about this national seminar and what would be the outcome of the 3-day dialogue that we would be having. The first of it is, what is your view on the intellectual traditions of ancient India? How is it significant today?
I deem it as a great privilege to be here in the midst of so many scientists and very senior researchers and scholars. In fact, this kind of conferences or seminars or discussion forums are very welcome for the development of the discipline and also the general understanding of the historical developments of any country. And in fact, the cross section of intellectuals have to meet, so that the modern days mostly everybody is confined to a very small area of study in their researches, and then when they are taking up further researches, I think they are confining themselves to a very small area, micro studies, most of them, and the macro studies and then the ancient studies have been almost neglected these times. And the young scholars who are coming up to research, they are not getting right tools for their research. So no subject is in itself, it can stand on its own legs, because unless it is helped by the other sister disciplines. And history is such a subject where almost all disciplines have to interact with it to find out any particular truth. So in the meantime, I think we can also think of something that the present literary traditions and also the earlier literary traditions, how they are connected. Now we find a lot of research is being done on so many areas, so many subjects, so many areas. In even social science, research is also being conducted on so many social problems, the current problems. And one important thing is that anything in this world, any literary tradition, any scientific development or any scientific research has to look into its earlier development, because everything is linked up. So that's the reason every subject has a history. And when anybody is trying to do some research in a particular subject or a particular field of study, I think he has to look into the past history. So similarly, our tradition, the present tradition, how they are related, how it is a development over the past. So that has to be first understood by a researcher first. In the ancient times, I think we had so much of literature that has been dated roughly from about 2000 BC, and which continued for a longer time as an oral tradition, and then it is reduced to the writing, which we can understand today from almost 3rd century BC, like that. So we call a historical period in the Indian context has started from 3rd century or 4th century BC. But now when we are looking into this historical tradition or the literary tradition or the formation of script or then the script that is decipherable now, so that that itself denotes that there was a great literary tradition even earlier. Maybe, may not be, it was written. So the oral tradition, I think we cannot date it, but it has the development over several centuries and several maybe millennia. We cannot date them. It doesn't mean that it has a very short life, because when suppose if you take Vedic literature, as is known today to us, it is a very difficult task for anybody to read and understand and look into its import. So these things are there. Every translation has different phases of development. So when we are taking this as a literary form, I think earlier till what time it was growing or developing, and now even in the modern times we are not able to examine this Vedic literature and say that can we change it or amend it or improvise it. Our literary traditions are such, ancient literary traditions are such that you cannot refine them, you cannot reform them, you cannot rewrite them, or you cannot bring down to the present level of understanding also. So such is the condition. If such literature was available some 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, if you believe in the evolutionary process, so it might have taken some thousands of years for its development to that stage. So this is the greatness of Indian literary tradition, and we find a number of shastras. Of course, we can say that it was a Vedic tradition consisted of some religious practices or yajna or whatever it may be till such and such time, and later it has grown into the Shastra period and then Kavya period, and then because the literary history will give us all this periodization. But before that, the literature that has come out at that particular period with that such kind of perfection and understanding has given birth to the Shastras. So these Shastras, must have been very good Shastras in the sense that we may not be able to understand the purport of the Shastra, but you cannot improvise that. But when you are going to apply them, Shastras, to the present period, perhaps again you have to do research. In the light of the present tools, appliances, devices, you can also go into the Shastra, not into the Vedas and other things, but at least into the Shastras. You can go, you can search that and find if there is any applicability for the present times. So the Shastra would give us the application form of the particular concept or phenomenon, and that way the research should go into the historical development of that particular subject. So that way history would definitely help all the modern researchers in any field of study. So the historical literature that we have yesterday is also useful to the historians today, because historians are also like the present group of intellectuals who are working on the ancient literature. So that in that way this seminar is going to help us, give us a window to look into the fusion of these ancient sciences and the modern sciences.
Thank you very much, sir. I was truly enamored when you said that every subject has a history, because in this age people value science, technology, commerce, management, finance as something which is above history, literature, etc. Therefore, I feel somebody like you should be able to bring back all these traditions. And I also liked when you said the fusion of the ancient and modern. Definitely a plane has to be created for this. So I'm very happy that you feel this seminar would lead to that kind of a platform. Now coming to the next part of it, what is the relevance of national seminars like these?
National seminar will bring those researchers who are interested in a particular field to come together on a common platform and discuss their problems in their researches. So they should also share what their findings are, and also they can also share their problems with others, so that there would be different levels of scholars available in the conference. So that way the juniors and those who are still pursuing may get benefited with the interaction with the senior professors. And the senior professors, because the contemporary specialists, they will be able to share their views and their problems and then their solutions. They can sit together and discuss if there is any problem, and then they may come to some common understanding of an approach to a historian. Because in any problem, the approach or the methodology is the basic problem. So one has to devise his own methodology to solve his own research problem. So that way, these conferences will definitely help them in giving them the advice about the available literature or available interpretations on the subject, and that would definitely refine his thought process. So conferences and national seminars should be taken very seriously, not just lightly.
Thank you, sir. In this conference, we have varied categories of delegates like senior scholars, research scholars, students, and professionals from the IT industries. Definitely, whatever you have said is in the truest sense of the spirit and the word. Sir, what is the role of history in today's context? How important do you think is the study of history, especially to a country like India?
History is definitely necessary and essential for any country, for any people. Even a small tribe, it should have its own history and they should know what their history is. And even a small community, because nowadays we say in the modern times, in history also mostly micro studies are coming up. A region or a place or an individual or an event. So these are the driving forces to study or take up research in history. That's welcome. But the problem is that they should see that they are going to be a part of the whole movement. Suppose if you study about the freedom movement in Karnataka, this should be studied as a part of the whole national movement. So if the researcher has this magnum idea or macro idea, I think his study is going to contribute to the national history. So that way the micro studies are most welcome. They would definitely enrich our understanding of each and every area and its participation, each and every community, their participation for the common good and national good. So the purpose of research must be common good, national good, or the good at large humanity, because the scientific researchers should benefit the entire humanity. Similarly, historical research would also benefit the entire humanity, and so that the present differences by the denominations of caste, creed and all this religion, and these should have been wiped out. They should have been wiped out only with a clear understanding of historical perspective. But the present history researches and the works are coming up at micro level, and also they are looked at from a particular angle. So suppose if you are looking the entire ancient and medieval or modern Indian history from the economic point of view, or a commercial point of view, or a religious point of view, if you take only one perspective and then try to study the macro history, then you are losing so many other finer aspects of the human culture. Human culture has so many, almost it has multifaceted culture. So it has to deal with all these things. But instead, if you are looking at one aspect, as I said about the micro studies, when also we are going through the historical research with one perspective, so you are giving only a colored history of ancient India. Suppose I have also reservations about the Dalit history and also the women history and all these things, because women, Dalits and elite sections, all these are comprising of one society. So as a social situation, you have to look at it, and as social problems, you have to denote them. You have to point out what the problems of a particular community are in the context of the entire society. So such kind of comprehensive histories have to come. And the second most thing, how it is going to benefit the society. So that is the most important thing when we are looking at history from one particular angle, just like a blind man groping in darkness. So you are not able to give a full picture of what is history. So our responsibility is also to give to the people, the general people, because everybody cannot be a historian, everybody cannot read history. But the history should go to him. He should know about his society, about his place in society, and about his past, about his culture, and about what the purpose of his life is, how the history has given them a narrative. So for that, mostly what we do, the present researchers, they are only confined to our libraries. Only research scholars, they only the one who is going to look into that particular problem is going to your book. Otherwise, your book is not read by anybody. So it is not reaching people. All researchers must reach people. In that way, the common man has to be educated. For him, again, he has to go down to the level of common man and make him understand about the concepts of history, about the developments of history. So he has a right to know about himself. So this effort also should be taken by the historian, and when he is writing to the scholars, he should also write to the common man. So there should be 2 or 3 versions of what he is going to tell about the society. When he is going to tell about the society, that should always be pointing out to a common good of the society and not a divisive society. So he should not appeal to the divisiveness of the society, but for the common good of the society. That should be the purpose of history. So that has to be pursued by our modern researchers, and then we can make a useful study of history and useful propagation of history.
In the context of the complex social realities that the entire India is facing, there is a cry for the youth to join hands in nation development. And I could clearly gauge from what you said that whatever we do, whatever we study, wherever we do our research, whatever domain be it, we have to have a holistic perspective. Therefore, I feel this is a very good message to the young researchers as well as the research scholars who are of the previous generation. Sir, how do you see the current trends in postmodern history or historiography? Are they becoming too scientific for your liking?
Postmodern history, or generally we call here post-independence history. And in the postmodernism, generally it aims at deconstructing the theories. And that is also a Western trend. That's not an Indian trend. It's only a Western trend, and that is being now applied to the social sciences and also in the studies of history. That is a debatable point, to what extent it is useful to us. But in the context of Indian history, postmodernism, not in the sense of the Euro, but in the sense of Indian history, is going to be necessary, because just now I told you that these theories that have been built up on the historical developments in the past 200 to 300 years, those theories do not have a strong base, because now if you suggest any alternative, the evidences that you are asking us, demanding from us, from a new historian with a new thought, then apply the same principles to those centuries, 18th centuries and 19th centuries, where these theories have come up. Did they satisfy your level of questioning? If such is the case, that theory can be accepted now. If that theory doesn't agree to your questions, then you should be able to say that we can do away with that theory. As a matter of fact, in history, theory-based history cannot be done. And what we find generally in the empirical social sciences, where the economic studies are being done, and that is possible only in the contemporary level, contemporary period, and also it may tell you about it may give you some projections for the future, that is short future or near future. It can't, because based on these economic studies, you cannot just form a economic policy for the 50 years to come or 100 years to come, because that will be again changing. And all empirical studies are only short-lived. After that, that becomes redundant. Similarly, our historical studies, when we confine them to a particular angle, so they are going to be redundant in future. So comprehensive histories have to come, and comprehensive histories have to solve. But we should also agree that history is not going to be a predictive science. So history can only give you a background, because every person has a shade behind him. Similarly, every subject has a shade behind it. So it only grows out of that. So that has to grow. For that, the history is important. History should be taken as a base for your study, but history does not project you to the future. So all historical developments or social developments or economic developments, we can only record them for the benefit of the future generation, so that they can understand, if they are placed in similar situation, what would be the result. And the results may also be different. Results may not be the same as we find today. The same principle which we have applied today may go wrong, but in the future it may be right. So keeping that in view, I think all social sciences have to be agreed. And one particular thing about history, I say, history or any discipline of social science, along with any discipline of social science, must be included with the science or technology or other courses. So where they can formulate the historical content based on that particular subject. Suppose if you are looking at textile technology, for the textile technology we have a very long history. You can take from history. So each subject will grow definitely when it is attached with its shadow. If you study that shadow, so you have fashions technology is there, cosmetic technology is there, and construction technology is there, and also the architectural styles. You can give a different world. I think the cities now we are following only the European styles, wherein the box type, matchbox type of buildings are coming up with multi-storied. But if you apply our architectural styles of the ancient and medieval, you can make beautiful facades of the greatest buildings. So that should be applied. History has to be applied with all science and technological subjects. Each subject has its own history. That history we can help them to build up their history of that particular science. So history has to be a component, a necessary component of any discipline, social science or sciences.
Sir, being the chairman of the Indian Council of Historical Research, I am sure that you have a lot of future plans, and I am very curious to know what you think about the future of ICHR.
This is a very big question which is almost out of my purview to answer this, because ICHR was there earlier for 4 decades, and then it would live for some, I don't know, indefinite time. It may be continued or it may change its nomenclature, whatever it may be, I don't know. ICHR has to take history to people. What I generally believe that as I said now, the history has to become an integral part of any study of any particular discipline. So that kind of help ICHR should be able to do. And for that, the corporate sectors and then corporate education sectors like university, Jain University, something like that, they should come forward. Because the government institutions, there are so many limitations. They are not able to take new courses, and they can't take initiatives for that. So that way the deemed universities should make a beginning. And if they want any help from the ICHR will definitely help them in the preparation of the curriculum and all that, and also giving the expert advice in the teaching of the particular subjects. So that way ICHR should be consulted, and it should be, the help should be taken from the ICHR. That's on one side about the development of curriculum and also shaping history and integrating it with each and every subject. In subjects like medicine, engineering, in every aspect, history can be an integral part that can be done. And the second thing ICHR has to do is that history should be known to the people. It should go to the people. In one of my diaries collections also I said that it's better to train some barefoot historians, because this tradition was an ancient tradition that has gone. It's a completely wiped out in the past 200 years in the modern educational technology. If you just remember about the times of Vyasa has made these Puranas. So Puranas are almost compendium of historical development of the whole creation, not exactly the present understanding of history, from where we can gather some strands of history here and there. So he has given this history of creation to Suta, and also Suta trained a number of other bards who have gone into the society, and there was a tradition that the villagers should assemble in the evening at some time for some Purana Kalakshepa. In the Purana Kalakshepa, though the bhakti is given much importance, but even then through bhakti they wanted to give this worldly knowledge to them. So this kind of educating the masses has completely stopped now. And even in the medieval times we had the bards who were what we call the subcastes. For each caste, there used to be subcastes, and these subcastes, Bala Vinodin, Brahmana Vinodins, Vipra Vinodins, they were there. So such class of subcastes are now completely, they are wiped out. Now we don't have subcastes, dependent subcastes. So they used to be wandering around their areas, and they used to have some jurisdiction to go about, and they used to go to those particular communities, and they were telling them their history. The whole community history was being propagated through these bards. So such kind of things are now not available, and the modern students, they are only trained in a particular discipline. Let's say in a science faculty, they go only in one stream, and they don't have any interaction with the social sciences. So that kind of independent streams have developed, and then they do not have any interaction with the other streams. So the problem now is with the government. The government has to train and appoint some barefoot historians, as it is done in China and other places also. They value their old customs, old traditions, old stories, legends. They are all important. So they are being propagated in the ancient communities. So we can also take the example, because we had a very long tradition. We have only forgotten that or neglected it. This can be started, and ICHR can also think of having some barefoot historians, train them and send them, and we can also train some students, history students, those who are studying history, to collect the local history from there, because these local histories are soon they are going to be neglected. And we used to have Sthala Puranas earlier. Each Sthala had a history, each community had a history. So these things have to be collected again, recorded, digitized, and then they should be able, the modern man, educated man could very easily find out, because through the World Web, I think they can find out anywhere. But for those who are not able to consult these things, the historians should go to them. Barefoot historians should go, students of history should go to them, tell them that these were the legends. So such communities used to be there, such a great hero was there, such a great personality was there. So these things have to be taught to them, and also link them up with the macro history, macro culture, macro understanding.
Thank you very much, sir. From whatever interaction we had, I get to understand that it's very important for us to take history to every home, to every town, to every city, to every state, to every country, from the micro level to the macro level. I have understood quite a lot about it, sir. Let us do something, and definitely Jain University will join hands to propagate this concept of macro history. Thank you very much, sir.